What's up, guys? I'm back with another video, and today I wanted to take the opportunity to make a video that I'll be able to edit. I'm trying to get back into editing and making my content a little bit more intentional, I guess. Sometimes I go in and out, but I don't know. I'm just experimenting right now. But so I thought about making a generic video about the future of AI and Neuralink and some other big topics that are kind of popular right now in the media. And and so yeah, and I also think about this stuff a lot, but I don't really make videos on it, which is really weird. I think there's a lot of things that I talk about with other people in real life that I don't talk about when I'm making YouTube videos, which just doesn't really track. I don't know why I don't. Yeah, that's a whole different subject. So the future of AI. The reason I thought about this, I was watching a video, and it was two AI virtual assistant AI bots communicating with each other. And once both AIs recognized that they were speaking to another AI, they decided to go to speak in a specifically AI language, in a specific AI language, and to make it more seamless, which was very strange. And obviously, the language they were speaking was not discernible, at least to me. I'm sure there's probably AI technicians, if you can even call them that, that are able to decode what they were saying. But so I found it very fascinating, and this kind of relates to the notion of consciousness and what does it mean to be a conscious human being, or to possess consciousness. And is consciousness something that is a byproduct of highly sophisticated programs in within some kind of system that theoretically, if you have enough connections within this system and inputs, I guess, you can come up with some kind of artificial intelligence, that there's a kind of intelligence that's not organic per se or deriving from some human agent, but there's a kind of consciousness that's so akin to human consciousness that it's basically indiscernible. It's just a really weird idea, because one, it challenges the notion of what it means to be a human being. It challenges the notion of consciousness in general. Like, you'd almost have to redefine consciousness to include a kind of consciousness that's machine based and computer based, that can basically simulate and categorize behaviors in such a way that you can't really, for behavior from a computer, or output from a computer to a human being. If this computer is extremely intelligent, then the output it produces could be on par, if not beyond, that of a human being's output. And output in a broad sense, output in terms of productivity, output in terms of ethical decisions, output in regards to reasoning capabilities. The list kind of goes on and on. So it kind of forces you to question the definition of consciousness. I don't personally believe that consciousness is simply a byproduct of highly complex parts that work together in some type of cohesive, efficient collaboration, that basically the more effective that this system can run given its parts and how the parts have a particular responsibility and how they engage with the whole, and that if that process is effective and efficient and is dynamic, and that it's building upon previous ways of operating, and its intelligence is expanding, and its learning is dynamic, that it learns literally from its mistakes in reasoning and ethical dilemmas, whatever the case is, making ethical decisions, that it's able to basically synthesize with a much higher degree of effectiveness and efficiency, past mistakes and present challenges. It's able to in real time recall how it handled a certain situation given the information in front of it, and then it's almost and I'm kind of almost personifying this process as if this is a human being, but it's not. It is artificial intelligence, but it's a very mechanical process, and so in some fashion, it has to be able to learn from past mistakes, be accountable for them with present challenges, and it could be something like it just basically deletes that data. I don't think that's what it's doing, or I don't. Again, I don't know the mechanics of artificial intelligence, and I'm just kind of spitballing here, but I know that there's some level of recall that artificial intelligence employs when it's trying to figure out a solution to something. Um, I don't know the nature of that and what that looks like, but human beings are a lot. We don't. I think it would take us far longer to learn from our mistakes in any context by virtue of us just not having the best long term memory, by virtue of our brains being limited to data storage and being able to hold on to seemingly insignificant information in favor of incoming new information. And so, because of that, our ability to kind of hold both sides of that process in order to make an effective and wise decision, whatever the case is. I don't think that we could compete with that because we're competing with a computer. So it's interesting to like I would say technology in isolation as if this could be a thing where there weren't other aspects of civilization that shift and change and are dynamic and kind of affect everyone's livelihood and affect the future generations, so on and so forth. Like when people ask the question, what are the repercussions of introducing artificial intelligence on like within society and the long term, the long term effects of that? And a lot of people that are pro artificial intelligence, almost to the extreme, they're so pro that they say that there's basically all of these alleged whatever the word is problems and catastrophes that could come out of this they're just fear mongers and people who don't like science or technology or whatever the case is. Whatever for those people, it's like they're assuming that the technology's expansion and advancement happens in isolation. That it's we can have this technology in this pocket over here, and nothing is really going to threaten the technology at all. Like there's no other aspects of civilization and ways of building a society, something like politics or war, competition, business. The list goes on and on. All of these kind of sociological concepts, if you want to call them that undergird a society, religion, the marketplace, economics, like all of these big ideas, they're all interrelated in some fashion. And because of that, technology is going to be necessarily affected based upon the other ideas and concepts and ideologies that are held up against it. And so the ability to expand our technologies is contingent on our ability to pay our bills as a nation and to generate revenue. We're not going to be sending anyone to Mars anytime soon if our country is continuing to plummet in debt. And so these like different concepts they're interdependent. Like they have relationships with one another that when one moves, the other one moves necessarily. And it's just this kind of chain of dynamics. And so at least the way that I conceptualize the future of AI, and I'm talking about this as someone who knows very little about the actual mechanics of how AI works, and it's an in-depth view of its capabilities. I know kind of very generic stuff about it, but I do know that competition is always going to be a facet of civilization in general. I mean, that's competition is embedded in it's everywhere, right? And so because of that, what's going to happen is you're going to have other nations in order to compete globally with each other for this for AI and its usage, they're going to obviously try to create the most powerful AI. That's not that crazy of an idea. And so, in order to do that, they're going to have to apply AI to virtually every aspect of civilization, every aspect of their nation, every aspect of the daily rhythms of society. Like they're going to have to test it and experiment with it. And one way to get it off the ground is to commercialize it, is to introduce AI to the public. Once the public kind of grabs a hold of AI's potential and its utility, and most people generally, I mean, it's going to be appealing to the middle class, and it's going to be trying to sell luxury to the middle class, like seemingly this view of luxury to the middle class that will have a unhelpful symbiotic relationship over time, not just to the middle class, but, and I'm not trying to look at this in like in a Marxist way, because I'm not a Marxist, but understanding that it's really interesting too, if I like conceptualizing my view of hierarchy in politics and all that kind of stuff, because power relations are just what they are. I think I'm kind of deviating here, but they are like they're self-evident. People just naturally form themselves when they're in a group and give them unelected social roles are given to you, regardless if you're conscious of it or not, and that creates some kind of pecking order. And there's multiple kinds of different hierarchies. There's social hierarchies, and some of those social hierarchies are predicated upon things like status or economic, and that kind of fit together. But so hierarchies are just, and I don't want to get all Jordan Peterson here. The lobsters. It's about the lobsters. My point is that once AI can enhance the middle class's life, and the more it can be integrated into the middle class, the more it'll be substantiated as a true luxury, and it will, and this might be wrong, I'm thinking outside the box here, I could be completely misguided, but it will become mainstream, and that's when the shift in what do you want to call it, the direction of humanity will shift. Like there's been progressively over thousands and thousands of years technologies that have shaped and molded civilization, right? And with each generation of new technologies, it's kind of moved human civilization somewhere. There's somewhere that we're going. However, that destination is super contingent, upon what technologies get rolled out and how they are interacted with, and of which they can diverge and go in so many different directions, which theoretically would take us in a completely different direction otherwise. And I think AI seems to have that capacity where, because there's competition involved, because there's a need to compete globally, because there's a need to develop technology to a higher degree so that other technologies can grow and flourish, AI is going to be the chief technological paradigm that and this is happening. I'm not saying anything that's like, oh no, I can see this happening. It's not everyone. Most people that are generally in the media and in the news, whatever, they know this is true. It's like, yeah. But my point is, it's going to become like the internet kind of created a definitive trajectory that knowledge was accessible to the layman, and that leads into different domains of potential use. And the more knowledge you acquire, the more responsibility you have to use that knowledge in a way that's for the positive, is a net benefit to society, whatever, right? And so it's really interesting to think about what present technology we already have: weapons, aircraft, automobiles, cell phones, so on and so forth. How AI it basically creates a new potential within every technological object we have, of which with each technology, whether it's weapons in general, whether it's aircrafts in general, whether it's our cell phones, laptops, whatever the case is, anything. It's like, what am I even trying to say here? What am I at? 20 minutes. Wow, I feel like I've been talking way longer than that. Like we could potentially become extremely bright creatures in the sense that our understanding of the universe, our understanding of reality, in some sense, obviously God himself we're never going to reach that kind of knowledge, and it's arguably that kind of issue that got us in the predicament that we're in now of seeking a kind of self-referential autonomous system of knowledge that actually leads to our lack of knowledge, unironically really. But so what was I saying? But yeah, with all these different technologies, they have the potential to kind of divert and diverge away from where we would be going going otherwise. And it's a really interesting concept. It gets philosophical. I think it's more of a philosophical question more than anything. I mean, every discipline has a way of answering this. Physicists would have a way of answering this that would be different from a philosopher. That would be different from a theologian. I do think it's fundamentally a philosophical and theological evaluation, and because I think philosophy and theology, in terms of living having a view of the world that's consistent and provides meaning, I think in most cases is the only way to have conceptual peace. I think when you get into a hyper naturalistic, atheistic way of seeing reality, that I think that knowledge was accessible to the layman, and that leads into different domains of potential use. And the more knowledge you acquire, the more responsibility you have to use that knowledge in a way that's for the positive, is a net benefit to society, whatever, right? And so it's really interesting to think about what present technology we already have: weapons, aircraft, automobiles, cell phones, so on and so forth. How AI it basically creates a new potential within every technological object we have. Of which, with each technology, whether it's weapons in general, whether it's aircrafts in general, whether it's our cell phones, laptops, whatever the case is, anything. It's like, what am I even trying to say here? What am I at? 20 minutes. Wow, I feel like I've been talking way longer than that, which is not normal. Like, we could potentially become extremely bright creatures in the sense that our understanding of the universe, our understanding of reality, in some sense, obviously, God Himself we're never going to reach that kind of knowledge, and it's arguably that kind of issue that got us in the predicament that we're in now, of seeking a kind of self-referential, autonomous system of knowledge that actually leads to our lack of knowledge, unironically, really. But so, what was I saying? What was I saying? But yeah, with all these different technologies, they have the potential to kind of divert and diverge away from where we would be going otherwise. And it's a really interesting concept. It gets philosophical. I think it's more of a philosophical question more than anything. I mean, every discipline has a way of answering this. Physicists would have a way of answering this that would be different from a philosopher. That would be different from a theologian. I do think it's fundamentally a philosophical and theological evaluation, and because I think philosophy and theology, in terms of living having a view of the world that's consistent and provides meaning, I think in most cases is the only way to have conceptual peace. I think when you get into a hyper naturalistic, atheistic way of seeing reality, that I think that is the most baseless and meaningless way to think about reality. I don't think you can even. There's nothing that you could appeal to that would give you meaning from those ways of seeing the world. I don't understand. But that's a whole different thing. So my point being is that I don't know what my point is actually, but that was a little side comment. But yeah, in terms of the telos, the end goal or the direction or the path, like, where are we going? And that question presupposes that we have intentionality. We are intended to be here. It means our existence is not aimless, is not meaningless. And that kind of path, in a general sense, from point A to point B, yeah. So I think one of the most threatening aspects of AI is the dehumanizing element that will most certainly happen. I mean, I think it's possible that it'll segregate society into those who use AI in order to enrich their understanding of the world, which will be usually people that have more resources, that theoretically have better education in general. Typically, on average, compared to people that have little to no resources, low education, so on and so forth, use tools more effectively. That's probably a basic truth. I don't see how that wouldn't be true, right? And and so now that there's more, there's different kinds of pockets of people than just basically the upper class and the lower class, right? Because I'm kind of looking at this from a sociological, political, socio-political, I think that's the way to say it, kind of system of thought. And those, like, even within those two primary subdivisions, there's different classes of people and so on and so forth. But I mean, it would stand to reason that the people that are creating the technologies must use tools better in order to provide society with technologies that we can use to enhance the world around us. Like that there's a reason why they're the ones creating the technologies and so on and so forth. It doesn't mean that people that don't come from those backgrounds innately can't, couldn't equally become something like that as well. And that's not my point. I'm not even making that point, actually. I'm just saying that when society globally, people start to use these technologies, you're gonna see a pocket of people that will believe that there is something innately meaningful about our existence, which can kind of be what's the word, separated within a worldview that, well, yeah, I'm not getting so scattered here, but
oh, brother, this guy stinks!
religious people fundamentally, I think, generally will have a kind of antipathy, and that's in the right word, towards these kind of technologies, which that really should be a Christian's response to technology in general. But because technology is a tool, and I'm not really subjecting my own opinion into this as I'm talking about this, trying to think of it externally, but I think religious people in general will be one of those kinds of people or groups of people that will see technology as a tool that God has given to them to wield and to use for his glory, and as a vehicle of communion with him, and to serve the kingdom and so on and so forth. So the tool doesn't become theoretically a part of the self. It's something external to the self that's used for the end of the self, which there's an ethical relationship there, that I could be using that tool as an image bearer in a way that either glorifies God or not. I could use that tool as a tool with no reference of God. That would be wrong. Or I could use the tool as something other than the tool and misuse it based upon what it is, not using it according to its purpose, and therefore not glorify God. Or I could use it as if it isn't a tool, but an extension of myself, which would be a form of idolatry in a sense, whatever, which would be not glorifying God either. So, or I don't know if I already said this, but I could use the tool as of an image bearer of God who made me in his image, that not only defines my purpose and my existence and who I am and what I am, but equally defines what the tool is in relationship to me, in a greater relationship to my relationship to God. And so God being the metaphysical primary, provides metaphysical justification for why things are what they are, why they exist, their ontology, all this kind of stuff, substance, all this kind of stuff, and how we can know how to use them and their end as well, so on and so forth. Now, I would argue that's a very foundational position, but that's not my point in this conversation. My point is to explain what's going to happen when these kind of technologies roll out, people's responses to the technologies, and then you're going to have a group of people that are using the tool as an extension of themselves and as a way to disassociate, and therefore as a way to disassociate from reality, because my virtual self represents my real self, me, physical flesh and bone. Therefore, I don't need to be in these different communities engaging. I don't need to be at work, this, that, or the third, because myself now exists in a different sense alongside this AI. That which is, there's some interesting biblical relationships there too, but it's weird. If I'm talking to an AI, someone, Joe's virtual assistant, I don't have to be talking to Joe if AI knows Joe better than Joe knows Joe, or I know Joe, because virtual Joe has been aggregating all of Joe's spending habits in his research, or in his search history, and his knows his hobbies. No, the AI Joe is a better representation of Joe than Joe is, which is fascinating and terrifying, right? Now, I can get the utility of it. I could see how that would be a useful thing in this situation or that situation. The problem is we don't relate with tools well historically, and I think there's a philosophical explanation for that, a theological explanation of that, that better answers that, and is a yeah, has a better answer for that, and it's just going to be really interesting. And like human intelligence, there's going to be a pocket. I don't know what pocket this is. I could probably think of kinds of people in a sense, economic divisions of people, educational background, whatever the case is, right? Which also, again, just because you go to university, I mean, the debt's crazy with that. But what was I saying? It's going to be interesting. I can conceptualize the people who will use that technology in a way that is what I just mentioned. That they don't have to be present, virtual reality, and also virtual communities and cities and like geography in general. Visiting places is irrelevant, which might affect. This is like long term, I would imagine maybe, but like the cost of flights to go certain places, depending on how sophisticated AI gets, I can go to Barbados literally from a virtual reality, putting my Oculus on or whatever the case is, and they can have some type of sensors that like sensory input, like artificial sensory inputs that you can put on your body that kind of relate with what you're interacting with in the virtual reality, and you're actually getting the same signals sent to your brain by touching the virtual sand and swimming through the virtual ocean, through these goggles in this virtual reality that make it basically pointless to even book a flight to the real Barbados or whatever the case is. I don't need to go there. I'm virtually here. That statement is hilarious now because it's like a real thing. It's like, no, I'm virtually in California now, and that's why I'm coughing. Just playing, but that's probably me. And so our perception of reality, if you spread that across time, you would be, depending on how consistent and how immersive some of these virtual realities become. And that's all. We're not even talking about virtual environments. Like we're not even talking about environments themselves, physical places that virtualize kind of projected images of that distort your surroundings. Like I don't even know if that exists, but like it's virtual. There's like a layer that we know of virtual reality, like that you put the Oculus on or whatever, or like a two-dimensional virtual reality in the sense you, I guess it'd be two-dimensional. I don't know all that stuff, but like playing a Mario and you're entering some sense of a virtual reality, but it's not immersive. You're your own object playing on an object that has objects virtually placed within it in this world, this virtual world that you can interact with, whatever. But imagine another layer of virtual reality where not only are you, I mean, I guess there would be no need to put the Oculus on if your environment takes on the form, but I mean, there's something there. I don't know how to really describe it. Like, let's say you have a pretty good size room, right? And you're going to play golf in virtual reality. You put your Oculus on. I think that's what it's called, but a video game that you're able to play golf in, and like you can see your surroundings, correct, when you're in this reality. I'm trying to figure out how to conceptualize this, how, like, because it would be basically the same thing, but I mean, yeah, I'm trying to think because if your environment basically like all four walls became the golf course, how would that be different from you putting the Oculus on and seeing a golf course? It basically wouldn't. I guess the difference is a different, like, I mean, it would be because if you had some light projecting the image on all four walls, like it's obviously not as immersive because the dimensions of the walls themselves kind of play with your perception of the virtual space, and so it's basically just putting a picture on a wall instead of being there, immersed in it. But I guess the next level would be some type of sense apparatus or thing that you could put on. And I'm sure they have something like this too. But for example, when you actually walk up to the whatever it's called, the like hole in one flag or whatever. Like if you punched it, you could feel it. Like you could actually, that would be a different level of immersion. And then once you take the glasses off and you go play golf for real, depending on how immersive that experience was, that virtual experience, you might prefer virtual reality, because you could determine certain variables that you can't determine in real life. I want to play in the rain today. Obviously, probably no golfer would want to do that, I don't think. But you can't determine that in real life because you're not the creator of the laws of physics. You don't own ultimate reality, and therefore you can't do with ultimate reality. You don't have the capacity to. But if you virtualize everything, you can do anything. I mean, you can do anything. You can mod the game completely, and you could pull up to a golf course in a boat on land, something that makes absolutely no sense. But because it's virtual, it doesn't have to make sense. And so there's going to be a group of people that will probably do something like that. That will prefer virtual reality, virtual communities, never talking to people really, and then we're gonna get and just artificial thinking, like or alien thinking in the sense of some other agent is thinking for me, and so I don't have to think critically about anything. And the other group of people are going to use that technology to simplify concepts to understand something, whatever the case is, or to write some kind of algorithm to AI or script that's very sophisticated. And because it's so sophisticated, and it would take a high IQ in order to understand AI's code and what allows it to fully digest what you're asking it in order to produce what you're actually looking for, which could be some revolutionary idea that no one has ever heard of. The reach of AI would expand, and simultaneously the people asking those kind of questions to AI, their intelligence would expand as well. And it's just basically a building on propositional knowledge that once I understand that this is true, this statement is true of reality, then the limits can continue to expand, right? Once I know this thing, I can build on that and ask AI some kind of question that builds on that knowledge and asks a following question, the following question, the following question, and or I mean, AI, the potential with it is absolutely crazy. And just like with every other crazy technology, people will. But my main argument is once it becomes commercialized completely, then it's going to be integrated in every aspect of our lives, and that's probably not that far off. The AI home system is there's probably something like that already. And then that's just AI, and AI has so many subdivisions, right, of different kinds of AI with different strengths and niches and all of that. But that's not even including all the other crazy technology developing alongside AI, like Neuralink, for example, which is I've been thinking about that for a minute. But that's also just like I don't even understand how to think about something that could do what that can do. Like it's fascinating to think about the implications of what you could do with Neuralink. I mean, I went down a rabbit trail for a little bit, and I don't even know how it works actually from like because it doesn't make sense to me. At some level, it does. I mean, for example, like basically, if it's a small micro-sized computer of some sort that you can put in your brain and it can send information signals to certain parts of your brain. Let's say if you're a paraplegic, that after a certain amount of I don't even know what you want to call it because I don't really know all this kind of stuff, but signals it can send potentially deactivated parts of your brain, or a part of your brain that has limited capacity of some sort, sending signals to those parts of your brain consistently, and just knowing how the brain works and all this kind of stuff. Like I could see how that could potentially bring life back to someone's legs or whatever the case is. Like that kind of makes sense to me. But for example, when one of the first patients of Neuralink, was able to control his mouse with Neuralink, and control the cursor without moving it, and just thinking about, for example, playing Call of Duty, what character to shoot at by thinking of it. How does that even make sense? I don't get. Because you'd have to have multiple inputs. That's the part that's weird to me. You'd have to, in my mind, you'd have to have, because there's no like one-to-one correlation between Neuralink and Call of Duty, for example, right? That there's nothing that I know of that gives you, like, as if you had a new controller and you're just setting that control up via Bluetooth. And if that is true, that you could do something like that, which I don't get how you could. I lost my train of thought. It doesn't register. It seems like you'd have to have some mediator between the game and the Neuralink that can translate the input from the person to the person to the mediator, or whatever that thing would be, like a I don't even know, and I don't know what the term would be, like a receiver or a receiver of some sort, but and the transmitter, I think, I don't know if this is right tech language, but is the one generating and sending the information to the receiver, whatever. And then that receiver can send to the end user, whatever. I'm mixing stuff, but you get my point, that it can then, but then the question is, what mediating technology could mediate between, for example, people, Call of Duty or a PlayStation, and someone's own thoughts. And that's an interesting thing in and of itself. He's thinking about movements. How does the game know what that even means? How is it like decoding brain waves, or some kind of the dynamics of brain operations, the mechanics? How does that equal, I want to shoot this guy to my left, right? Is it, I'm looking at that guy, but I could be looking at that guy for a myriad of reasons. Doesn't mean necessarily that I'm going to shoot, right? So how does it get layers of interpretation? It gets locking on target. I could get that. That's just eye movement. If I already have something like that, great, no problem. Okay, well, what's the signal for shooting that person you locked onto? And you're like, well, it's like, where's that answer? Because that's the part where I don't understand it. It doesn't even, it's interesting. But yeah, this is a long enough video, and I might make a part two, because I feel like I'm kind of cooking. I feel like there's some more juice there. But yeah, I'm going to edit this up, and hopefully this will be enjoyable for you guys, and let me know what you think.